Hello everyone, in this video we are going to discuss 5 critical diagrams that can help you to improve your center game. After watching this video, your chess knowledge, particularly in center position, is going to be improved by 100%. So I don't want to waste any further time, so let's quickly jump into the video. So coming to the trap number 1, we are playing with the white pieces and we start the game with 1 e4. Our opponent replies with e5 and already on the second move we are opening up the center by playing the move d4. Our opponent captures the pawn, we capture with the queen, and our opponent plays the move knight to c6, already attacking the queen on d4. We move the queen to a4, a very safe square for the queen. Knight to f6, trying to develop the knight and also putting the pressure on the pawn on e4. We play the move knight c3, d5, trying to open up the center as well. And here, most of the player likes to capture the pawn, and after knight takes, queen takes. The position is already equal. There is no reason for black to worry a bit because black can develop the bishop, long castle, and black is extremely fine. So what we do here is, at the place of d5, removing the tension by capturing the pawn, at the place of capturing the pawn, we play the move bishop to g5, simply pinning up the knight and putting the pressure of capturing the pawn on d5 now. So after bishop g5, black captures the pawn, and we capture the pawn. So after knight to e4, we are already putting pressure on the knight on f6. So black plays the move queen e7, which is a very common move. You pin up the knight, and now your idea is to capture the knight. And here, if white captures the knight, black is happy to capture the bishop. The threat is already to push the pawn, and black is pretty healthy. So here we already do a long castle, sacrificing the knight. Queen takes, and you can pause the video in this particular position if you want and try to find the best move for white in the position. Okay, so the best move in the position to continue the game here is rook to d8 check. After rook d8 check, what's happening here is you cannot capture the rook with the knight because the knight is pinned. If you try to capture the rook with the king, I can simply capture the queen because the knight is simply pinned like this. And if you try to move the king, it's not going to really work because I can still capture the queen, because you still cannot capture the queen because still the knight is pinned. So position is already winning. So this is the first trap you can already sense happens in the center game that you must be aware of. Always look out for crazy traps and tricks, because whenever your opponent king is in the center, there are lots of tactics flowing into the game. So you must be always care of it. So this was the trap number 1. So now let's move on to the trap number 2. Coming to the trap number 2, we are playing with white pieces and we start the game again by playing the move e4. e5, d4, takes, knight c6, and here we play the best move, which is queen e3. After queen e3, black develops the bishop, giving a check. We push the pawn, kick the bishop, and develop the bishop. Bishop c4, and here, many players think that knight f6 is not a good move because it allows white to push the pawn. So at the place of putting the knight to f6, let's put the knight to e7, which is a more natural move. After knight e7, we play the move queen g3. The idea of queen g3 is already to attack the pawn. Short castle. And here a lot of players think to simply put the bishop on h6 and threaten mate in 1. But here it's not really a good idea because black can simply defend it by playing the move knight g6. And now black is already preparing to hit the bishop, so you have to waste a move by going back now. And now there is no point of putting the bishop on h6 when you have to pull it back. So at the place of putting the bishop on h6, white plays the move h4. You must play the move h4. And the idea here is, after bishop h6, knight g6, you are having this possibility of pushing the pawn to h5, which is very strong. So after h4, black puts the knight on g6. First push the pawn to h5, knight to e5, hitting the bishop. And black is thinking, we move the bishop, and black will try to generate some serious counterplay with d5, as our king is still in the center. So after knight to e5, at the place of pulling the bishop back, we play the move bishop to g5, a very strong move. You cannot push the pawn because the pawn is originally pinned. So the fourth move you are having is to put the queen to e8. You cannot put the knight in between because you are simply losing the knight. So queen e8, which is a fourth move. And now, can you find the best move in the position for white? You are having a couple of seconds. You can pause the video, try to find the best move. Okay, if you want to improve your tactical awareness or center game analysis, you must find this move, bishop f6. And after bishop f6, the idea is pretty clear. White is threatening mate in 1. If you pull your knight back, I can happily capture the knight, and I'm a very happy guy. I simply want a piece. So here knight g6 is not really working. So black must push the pawn. And after pawn push, we are already going to capture the pawn. And you can see we are already threatening mate in 1 by capturing the pawn on h7. So black is having two good options to continue the game by capturing the pawn with the h pawn or with the knight. If black captures the pawn with the knight, we can already capture the knight with the queen and threatening mate. And it's the fourth mate, you can't really stop it. You cannot capture with the f pawn because the f7 pawn is originally pinned. So if you try to capture with the h pawn now, I can simply do a mate in 1 still. So it's a mate, you can't really stop it. So this was the trap number 2. So now let's move on to the trap number 3. Coming to the trap number 3, we are playing with the white pieces and we start the game with 1 e4, e5, d4, takes, knight c6, queen e3. Bishop e7 now, knight c3, and now developing the knight to f6. Thinking that white cannot push the pawn because after knight g4, it's the queen is attacked and now black is already preparing to capture the pawn. So we play the move bishop to d2, and here black tries to play the move d5, trying to open up the center. Pawn takes, knight to b4. Very, very smart. If you try to capture the pawn, white is pretty happy to capture this. Queen takes, and now white can already continue simply by playing the move knight e2, knight c3, hitting this queen, or even knight f4, trying to hit the queen. So yeah, black trying to be smart, he plays the move knight to b4, which is a very logical move. You put some pressure on the pawn on d5, and also your threat is to capture the c2 pawn, hitting the king and the queen. We do a long castle, and here comes the move knight into d5, and here black thinks of capturing the pawn on a2. If you try to capture the knight, white can already play the move queen b3, little short castle, bishop e3, already preparing to play the move c4. And yeah, it's already double attack, so you must prevent it, and after c4, you already win a piece. So it's not really working. So knight into a2, check, king b1, and now capturing the knight. Black is originally a pawn up, so how to continue the game now? From the white side, you play the move g3, b3. Now your idea is to simply capture the knight. Knight goes to b4, and here you can't really capture the knight, thinking that the bishop cannot capture the bishop because the bishop is pinned, but you are simply losing the rook and eventually the game. So the best move here is, you can pause the video, try to find the best move if you want. Okay, so the best move in this position is to sacrifice the queen on e7, deflecting the king and now capturing the knight finally, giving a check and also threatening to win the queen. Black plays the move king e6, hoping that white will capture, takes, though white is still winning, but even the best move is to play the move bishop c4, getting the queen for the only a bishop, and eventually this position is completely winning for white. White is a piece up and winning the game. So this was the trap number 3, a very interesting trap. So now let's move on to the trap number 4. So in the previous 3 traps, we have already discussed how to set some nasty threats, nasty traps from the white side. So now we are going to discuss how to play these traps against with the black pieces. We are playing with the black pieces. It's the trap number 4. White plays the move e4. We play the move e5, d4, takes, knight c6, queen e3. And we play the move bishop to b4, check. c3, bishop a5, bishop c4, the same line, knight f6. After knight f6, white pushes the pawn to e5. And yeah, after e5, thinking that if we play the move knight g4, which is a fine move, white is having this bishop into pawn, king into, going to f3, check, and now winning a piece. It's equalish, but black lost his castling rights. So after e5, this is what our white's idea is. At the place of moving the knight, we play the move simply short castle. After short castle, if I try to capture the knight, rook e8, a very strong move. This is our idea. As I told in the first trap, whenever your opponent's king is in the center, try to set some nasty threats, traps, and it would always work. Always look out for tactics whenever your opponent king is in the center. Rook e8 and the queen is lost, and it's completely winning position. After d5, it's already winning for black. So this was the trap number 4, a very nasty trap. You must be aware of how to play it with the black pieces. So now let's move on to the final trap of the day, which is the trap number 5. So coming to the trap number 5, we are playing with the black pieces. Our opponent plays the move e4, e5, d4 takes, queen takes, knight c6, bishop queen to e3. We develop the knight to f6. White can't push the pawn because of knight g4, hitting the queen and also winning the pawn. So bishop c4, the main move. We play the move knight e5, hitting the bishop. Bishop goes back, and now we give a check. c3, and after c3, white is thinking, okay, black will move the bishop, I will develop my pieces and play a simple game. But after c3, we play the move bishop to c5, a very strong move. Here, already after queen c5, after bishop c5, if white captures the bishop, already knight fd3 is winning the game because it's a check and white is losing the queen. So you cannot capture the bishop. If you play the move queen g3, trying to hit this knight and the pawn, which looks like a smart move, it's still losing after bishop into f2 check. King is attacked as well as the queen. White is having two options to capture the bishop with the king or the queen. If you try to capture the bishop with the king, knight into e4 check, and you lose the queen. And if you capture with the queen, knight to d3 check, and you still lose the queen, and black is simply winning. So this was the 5th trap you must be aware of. How we use your opponent's king to set some nasty traps and win the game. So these were the 5 critical diagrams I think that might have helped you to improve your center game analysis and possession and your level and your knowledge. If it did, then make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to our channel because it helps us to motivate to make videos like this. And make sure to share this video with everyone. And yeah, I'm going to see you soon. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching OneShot Chess.